My Hero Academia is in its final saga, and with that comes the final war arc. Due to the nature of war, people are bound to die, though there may be characters who won't die despite all odds, such as Bakugo and his damaged heart. So today we'll be breaking down who may or may not die in the final war arc. Death and war in My Hero Academia. Before we jump into who is most likely to die, let's examine what death means in My Hero Academia and break down the current war. Unlike other shonen series like Jujutsu Kaisen or Chainsaw Man, My Hero Academia doesn't feature a smorgasbord of death. Instead, very few characters have died. This is even in spite of the previous war arc. Death simply isn't something taken lightly in My Hero Academia, nor is it something that happens often. The few deaths in the series have been impactful. They've had meaning and have served to drive the plot. For example, the shield hero Crust sacrificed himself so that Aizawa could escape Shigaraki's decay wave. Or when Star and Stripe died and allowed her quirk to be taken by Shigaraki, only for her quirk to revolt inside of him. Either way, death being uncommon is something intended by Horikoshi. In fact, Horikoshi said in an interview that while he enjoys stories that don't have happy endings, he finds that when I'm writing it myself, it gets really difficult. In the same interview, Horikoshi knows that the internship arc was difficult to write because of how dark it was. So it makes sense that death isn't at the forefront of the series. It's clear Horikoshi has become attached to his characters and their stories, which means death only happens if it advances the plot or has significant meaning. Regardless, there have been a handful of deaths within the series. It makes sense that people would perish in such a large-scale fight. Yet there weren't many deaths among the characters, or rather, there wasn't a lot of death in the first war arc to begin with. Now that we've established the way Horikoshi writes death, it's time to look at the final war arc. This is the last arc in the final act of My Hero Academia. Like in the Paranormal Liberation War arc, there are massive battles being fought. However, the fights here have the highest stakes. Not only is it a big deal because it's a big confrontation, it's because there will no doubt be death. Everyone is in a dire situation. Speaking of which, let's examine where everyone is currently. Endeavor, Hawks, Jiro, Tokoyami, and others are at the Gunga Villa site, facing off against All for One, miscellaneous villains, and Nomu. Meanwhile, at the UA Fortress, Shigaraki has been fighting heroes such as Basginist, Miruko, and Bakugo. Shigaraki's biggest supporter, Spinner, is most likely near the hospital where Kurogiri is being held. Currently, he's battling Shoji, President Mike, and Koda. In the city below Troy, Fat Gum and Oyama are fighting the mysterious Kunieda. Everyone, hero or villain, is giving it their all for their ideals. Besides the war being a battle to the death of the villains, it is an all-out brawl for dreams and ideologies. But before we get into all that, be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on to never miss an upload, and smash that like button for some plot armor today. Lemillion. Truthfully, Mirio's death is only something we recently began to believe in. We've seen the big three without him for a while, but it seemed as if that was for another Mirio reveal. Unfortunately, it may not be just that. Mirio's appearance in both the war arcs feels like a beacon of hope. He arrives just as things begin to really go south for the heroes. Mirio's entrance is like the sun peeking out after a rainy day. He is the embodiment of hope, and this war is the final confrontation to decide who will win it all. If Shigaraki really wants to demoralize the heroes, he could kill Mirio. After all, the hero has been compared to the sun. Currently in the manga, Bakugo's attack was enough for rain clouds to form. The sun has been effectively blotted out. Granted, this change of weather could simply be a physical representation of how bad things are for the heroes, though I think it's more than that. Wouldn't it make sense contextually to destroy the sun by killing the physical representation that is Mirio? It's not only something foreshadowed by the weather, but it would be a low moment for the heroes, especially if he died at the hands of none other than Shigaraki. Besides that, Mirio's death would explain why the big three have been seen without him. I doubt it was merely setting up another Mirio comeback. That would be boring. Could it instead be a way to foreshadow a future of the big three minus Mirio? So really, it's possible one of the big three could die. That being said, there are villains as well who may pass on. Spinner. Spinner has had the same significance to Shigaraki as Bakugo to Deku. He serves as the right-hand man to Shigaraki, and even expresses concern when he's adapting to a stronger body. Spinner throws away all his convictions for Shigaraki as well. He joined the villains because he believed in Stain, yet later on, he completely abandons this to follow Shigaraki completely. Spinner is also why so many mutant quirk users join the Paranormal Liberation Front cause. He's proven to be useful and an important character. This is further bolstered by his narration in the My Villain Academia arc. Regardless of these qualities, it's apparent some of the villains may not come out of this war alive. Spinner may be one such villain. As previously mentioned, his friendship with Shigaraki is similar to Bakugo and Deku's. And as manga readers currently know, Bakugo is dead, at least for now. Either way, Spinner's death would act as a mirror to Bakugo's, since it would be the end of another duo. Not to mention, it also seems as if Spinner's body is under stress from accepting a gigantification quirk from All For One. The last time Spinner was seen, he appeared brainless, drooling, and overall just very unlike the lizard villain we know. It's common knowledge that quirks can overload a body. Spinner isn't unique by any means, nor is his body known to be rather hardy. It's possible his body could give out due to the strain of his quirk factor. Also, he's fighting students and President Mike. I can't see any of these students or President Mike being forced to kill a villain. Nor does it seem as if Spinner could be apprehended. So really, it's possible Spinner could succumb to the overload of quirks on his body instead. But on the topic of death, it would be a disservice to not include Oyama. Oyama. Since the traitor reveal, Oyama has had death flags. For example, he has served his purpose as a traitor to UA and has stopped working for All For One. One could say he is a plot device that has overstayed his welcome. Plus, he's facing miscellaneous villains with Fat Gum, all while fighting with a body that isn't suited for his quirk. But the most important factor may be who exactly he's fighting. Oyama is facing a Tartarus escapee whose quirk seems to spawn or at least be involved with red spider lilies. What's significant about that is the fact that red spider lilies can be symbolism for death or goodbyes. It would be less tragic if Fat Gum were to die. He's a pro hero and doesn't have anything to atone for, unlike Oyama. Him dying fits perfectly into the narrative of redemption through death. It's something Gran Torino originally said about Shigaraki, but surely it can function as general foreshadowing. After all, Shigaraki isn't the only character who can be redeemed after losing his life. Oyama fits this quote perfectly because his betrayal led to 2 wars, and so does Endeavor. But we'll discuss the number 1 hero next. What matters is that there hasn't been a student death yet, a tragedy that comes from the passing of one of Deku's peers. And perhaps that outcome is what awaits Oyama. He will most likely be ostracized from society, and it will feel almost impossible for him to truly atone or move on from his betrayal. However, he could die fighting the villains and be seen as a hero. Maybe even die saving Fat Gum. Either way, it's possible he could meet his end. With that being said, let's dive into Endeavor. Endeavor is one of the most polarizing characters in modern shonen. Despite that though, he's been a big focus within the series. His entire family drama has been an all-encompassing subplot for months. Without a doubt, he is an important character. Not to mention, he has been at the center of the war recently. Endeavor is facing none other than a prime All For One. All For One was someone dangerous even as a Mr. Potato Head in a suit, and now he has somehow rewound himself to be a younger, stronger self. Even before All For One's miraculous regeneration, the fight was still in the villain's favor. At least until Endeavor saw the metaphorical future of his son and other students. Only then do we see Endeavor have the willpower to virtually incinerate All For One. But as readers know, a little fire doesn't stop ultimate evil. Instead, All For One begins to rewind his body. Not only does he regain an uninjured body, but his original face. If the heroes were struggling when All For One didn't have a healthy body, they will certainly be hurting now. So why will Endeavor die? Personally, I believe the answer to be rather simple. But in order to really understand it, we must first acknowledge what Dabi's goal is. The demented Firestarter's endgame is to destroy his father Endeavor mentally and kill him afterwards. He really and truly is preying on Endeavor's downfall. His desire to ruin his father is so strong that he loses interest in fighting Shoto if Endeavor isn't there to see the carnage. In Dabi's own words, "Once I've burned away all that thing holds near and dear, that'll be the mark I've left." Killing Shoto isn't worth it to Dabi unless Endeavor can see it. In the last war, Dabi tried to achieve this all while a shell-shocked Endeavor watched. But now, things are different. Endeavor is determined to stop his son and atone for his mistakes. Plus, he's no doubt exhausted due to fighting All For One and losing an arm. Both he and Dabi are at death's door. If Dabi can make it to Endeavor, it's doubtful the flaming hero will just stand by and watch his son fight again. It's likely he'll try to put a stop to it. As Endeavor himself has said to the public, "I want all of you to just watch me." He's adamant about atoning and stopping his son. His true goal is to win the war and defeat Dabi. It's the entire endgame for the family too. However, Endeavor's honorable goals do play into what Gran Torino told Deku. Again, Gran Torino's quote that killing can be another way to save someone can be applied in this situation for the fallen hero Endeavor and his twisted, villainous son Dabi. Dabi isn't going to stop, which is evident from how badly damaged his body is now. He's practically just bones, yet he still wants to utterly destroy Endeavor. Meanwhile, Endeavor is functioning off of pure willpower and adrenaline. Between his missing arm and all the significant damage, Endeavor is well past the point of overheating due to his quirk. Both hero and villain are worn out and could die. Therefore, it's possible both may succumb to each other's firepower in mutually assured destruction. Dabi gets his good ending of finally destroying his dad, while Endeavor can give up the mantle knowing he's done what he set out to do, which is stop Dabi. Also, Endeavor would have his redemption just as Gran Torino's words foreshadowed. Even in the My Hero Academia universe, Endeavor is vilified. Giving up his own life while snuffing out his son's would show that he has grown into his identity as a hero. Of course, this ties into the fact that Dabi wants a final confrontation with Endeavor. Neither can die until that happens. It's something that would complete their story arcs, therefore allowing them to both die. But this theory isn't backed purely by Gran Torino's quote. It can also be explained by Endeavor's own doing. In his journey to right his wrongs, Endeavor decides to build another house for his family, a home he won't be a part of because he realizes the damage he has done. It would be the perfect way to wrap up Dabi's story and the Todoroki family drama. That being said, Endeavor isn't the only pro-hero likely to die. Best Jeanist. Best Jeanist is on an active battlefield against the ultimate evil, fighting with just one lung. Battling with that one lung has also certainly taken its toll. Blood covers his eyes and keeps dripping from his face. With only one lung, he is no doubt struggling to breathe. Like Endeavor, it's clear Best Jeanist is on his last leg. So that raises the question, will he die? We believe he has a very high likelihood. This war has only reinforced the fact that Best Jeanist sees Bakugo as a protege. He's like what Deku is to All Might. Their development is interlaced together as mentor and student. Growth is built off of each other. But right now, as it stands, Bakugo is dead. His progress is at a halt. However, we all know that will not remain the case, but we'll get into that next. What really matters is that Best Jeanist has been a mentor to Bakugo, and he is currently severely wounded. Without a doubt, Best Jeanist being horribly injured and an important figure for Bakugo really set death flags flying. As we know, Best Jeanist would give his life for others. He's already done that before, at least metaphorically, when he was in a death-like state during the Meta Liberation Army arc. Best Jeanist is willing to do whatever it takes, and perhaps that will be giving his life for Bakugo. Not only this, but Best Jeanist himself says, "Even now, my body is like distressed denim." Ignoring his lung situation, Jeanist's body still isn't up to par. He is not functioning at his best, and a true hero would do anything for the younger generation. The ninja hero Edgeshot is in the midst of giving his life for Bakugo's. This is a monumental sacrifice that is sure to impact Best Jeanist deeply. In fact, Edgeshot leaves everything in the capable hands of his former class president. I can certainly see this further spurring on Best Jeanist to give it his all now being his life. And as Bakugo's mentor, it would mirror Night Eye's devastating loss that ultimately inspired Mirio to continue on. And on the topic of enduring calamity, let's take a look at who could survive the final war arc. Who could live? Now there is a possibility that several characters with death flags will make it out. Bakugo is certainly one of them. As mentioned, the explosion user has seen significant development. He went from wanting to constantly compete with Deku and suffering from a superiority complex to accepting that he doesn't have to be the number one. We could say that his story has come full circle, so there's no need for him to stay alive. But if we go by Horikoshi's own words, that may not be the case. For Katsuki, a hero is someone who can win. Bakugo's dying prematurely wouldn't be winning. While it is true he was able to wound Shigaraki's eye, it wasn't enough to turn the tide for the fight. Nor was it significant in any way. Bakugo's death itself was so out of left field that it felt more like a fake out. Again, I remind you, death doesn't happen often in My Hero Academia, and when it does, it is foreshadowed for the most part. This was seen in not only Night Eye's situation, but Midnight's as well. Unlike Bakugo, they weren't part of the main cast either. As it stands, Bakugo's death would be more fitting for a background character. It isn't appropriate for someone who is the deuteragonist of the series. Therefore, one might argue it makes sense why Bakugo is cheating death here. And frankly, we could argue that he did just that during the last war arc when Shigaraki impaled him. But this time around, the damage is a lot worse. Now, Bakugo has no real villainous foil. His peers do, but Bakugo does not. Even more background characters like Shoji have a big bad to defeat. While it could be argued that Bakugo doesn't have a foil because his real enemy is himself, I think it's more than that. Bakugo and Deku are heroes who save to win and win to save. They are a package deal. Ergo, it's not hard to assume Bakugo's endgame villain is the same as Deku's. Plus, this could further the theme of not shouldering your burdens alone. Deku will be fighting Shigaraki with Bakugo. Both Deku and Bakugo have been severely underestimated by the All-For-One consciousness. However, in the realization of their utmost potential, which is pretty much the backbone of all shonen, they do strike fear into All-For-One. We saw this in the case of Bakugo by way of him reminding All-For-One of the second user of One For All. Bakugo living is bound to subvert the hero's expectations and Shigaraki All-For-One's as well, and presents a moment for their unlucky streak to be broken. Plus, it doesn't really make sense for Bakugo to have all that development and overcome his superiority complex, only for him to then die. In spite of all of that, it is possible that a student will die. Maybe it's just not Bakugo. But like Bakugo, I have my doubts that Shigaraki will die. Yes, Shimura Nana, his grandmother, asked Deku if he could kill Shigaraki. Yet at the same time, it is clear Deku wants to save Shigaraki more than anything else. He doesn't believe the solution is to kill him. he thinks he can get through to him and reach the little Tenko underneath. Besides, My Hero Academia has always been about saving people. Who would be a better candidate to save than the antagonist who has been deemed as unsalvageable? The young Tenko inside Shigaraki wants to be saved as well, and it's clear this part of him is being stuffed down in favor of the Shigaraki and All For One personas. Even in his mind, Tenko is shown suffocated, surrounded by a mass of hands. It's as if the little boy within wants to be saved, but can't reach out to Deku until Deku reaches out to him. Heroes reach out to help, and Tenko likely sees Deku as someone who could do it. It is once again depicting the theme of not shouldering your burdens alone and having a network of support. Two things Tenko was never afforded. My Hero Academia has always been a story of hope, so at what point would someone become irredeemable? There could still be a chance for him. Because of that, it is unlikely Shigaraki will die, unless it were from another person's doing. His body is suited for his quirks, so a death like what could happen to Spinner wouldn't make sense. The only person who can keep up with Shigaraki right now is Deku, and I can't see the Eternal Optimist killing anyone, even if that person was created to become the ultimate evil. It simply isn't in Deku because he has always wanted to help people, to save them. And I think Deku could do just that for Tenko. But what do you think, and who do you expect to die in the final war arc of My Hero Academia? Please let us know down below. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.